You are watching live coverage in the Oval Office. President Trump meeting with the president of South Africa. Seated beside him here, Cyril Ramaphosa. I want to bring in our senior Washington correspondent, Hallie Jackson, who's been watching along with us. Hallie, another extraordinary meeting inside the Oval Office, talking about a difficult topic, accusations that the White House, this administration, has made about genocide of white South African farmers.
That's right.
An accusation that obviously President Ramaphosa is pushing back against in this meeting today.
Yeah, it's not quite a Zelensky-level blow-up when, of course, President of Ukraine came in and there was that extraordinary moment in the Oval Office. But I'll tell you what, it is certainly an unexpected confrontation here. And the South African delegation seemed taken aback, candidly, Aaron, just by the reaction in the room. We'll get more from inside the room. I'm sure you heard the voice of our colleague there acting as pool. But you heard some sort of awkward laughter and then silence, frankly, when President Trump and the Trump team there played this video. Again, the president has accused in recent months South Africa of genocide, and you have heard the South African president pushing back very strongly on this, pointing to his agriculture minister who is speaking there, pointing to a number of reasons why he says that is simply not true. And yet this confrontation here persists. You get the impression that perhaps President Trump wanted this to happen as it is playing out, wanted these potentially clearly uncomfortable moments here. There is a backdrop to this, of course, in that President Trump's close confidant has been for months now Elon Musk, who's from South Africa, who's also been outspoken and vocal on this. And it comes as the Trump administration has also, even as they have essentially shut down the U.S. to most refugees around the nation, have opened U.S. borders to white South Africans to come into the country here. So it is complicated geopolitically, but in the room, just some of these really stunning moments here between these two world leaders. What's interesting here, too, the schedule was a little bit different than we expected. So you have to wonder, how does this play out? Do they end up having the rest of their meetings as is expected throughout the course of the afternoon, or does this short circuit here, Aaron, and what we're watching play out live right here?
And the president of South Africa has made the effort a couple of times through the course of this meeting, Hallie, to try to say, you know what, we want to have this conversation. We want to hear your concerns and talk about what they believe, the South African government believes is the reality on the ground here, trying to sort of wrap this up. And yet we saw the president continue to reiterate his points here. And he was asked by several of the reporters in the room whether there was something that he wanted to see South Africa's government do at this moment, and he didn't really answer that question.
And you've heard the South African president and the leadership from South Africa there try to say, listen, to your point on the diplomacy that they seem to be trying to put forward here in the room, Aaron, say, hey, like, let's talk about this. We want to have this conversation and keep those discussions going. But the president is continuing to push on that. He is taking some questions, obviously, from in the room, but clearly displeased with questions that do not relate to the topic that he wants to get into here, which are these accusations of genocide. It's also interesting, Aaron, listen, you've been in these Oval Office sprays, as they're called in White House parlance. I've been in them. You don't often hear from the folks on the couch, especially not behind the couch as well, some of the members of these foreign delegations that come. It is typically, of course, the principal, the leader who is in that chair opposite the president who speaks. So there's just a lot of very interesting moments here. And we've seen, of course, the U.S. delegation, including Vice President Vance. You can't see it in this shot, but on the other side as well, on the couch. So this is not it is fair and safe to say this is not typical. This is not how typically these things normally go down. But this is a president who obviously is comfortable with the unprecedented and is looking to make a point here.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.